here this morning on precision farming technology systems, moving the grain from the harvest to crop insurance reports. I am part of the NAU precision farming team. As you can see, we have other members to our team also, and I myself am pleased to be here today. Precision farming requirements consist of the variabilities between fields that we can see when we look at the maps associated with each field. It's a way to judge the distances between good varieties, bad varieties. Different fertilizer management is what the intentions were. Of course, we're looking at it for both planting populations and for varieties yields in the field, not necessarily by variety, but certainly by what it looks like when we take a look at it. In order to have a global positioning system that we need for crop insurance, it requires global positioning information from a GIS or geographic system, summary reports that reflect the planted acres, and harvested production. And we need the calibration report that we'll discuss in some detail in a little bit. The precision farming has many different advantages that we like to consider at NAU Country Insurance. One of them is the accuracy of the information that we get in order to do claims, finish reviews in the future, or do our actual production history yearly, considering that the information was verified by the crop insurance procedures and was assigned and dated by both the agent and the insured. One of the other advantages of the precision farming information is it creates reports for us automatically. Once we get the information into our mapping system, it'll create us an acreage report or a production report depending on the time of year. It saves time and money and is focused on accuracy. And we spend a great amount of time working on the accuracy of the information that we are portraying in our reports. Efficient, it makes it quite easy to give us the electronic planting and harvesting information, and the insured can do that without even leaving his house if he wants to. He can set up a farmer's portal and link his account from FieldView, My John Deere, or AgFinity, or whichever service he's using can link that to our portal, and that information from his to us is available at all times once the link is set up. We certainly look at precision farming to assist us with claim settlements. It makes a faster claim settlement, it's quick and it's accurate, and it's based off the precision harvest information that we receive, and it should be broken down by irrigated, non-irrigated practices or unit structure as the insured wanted it to be. In order to look at planting records and seeing if we have possible unit structure within a pivot, we can look at the seed populations. The seed population, 36,000, would represent the irrigated portion of the pivot. 14,000 seeds or thereabouts would do the non-irrigated corners, and that would give us a discernible break in the mapping program. He doesn't have to go out there, swath, mow, disc, shred, or create any boundaries between the irrigated and non-irrigated. The seed population does that for us. The automated reports are based off of the combine information that's submitted to us. The planting information is for the acreage report, and we can use the information for policy reviews 2 or 3 years down the road. And of course, loss settlement documents is what we're looking for to work claims. The automated planner records the planting populations. It shows us the portions of fields that were planted or not planted, whichever the situation may be. And it creates the ability to do pivot corners without discernible breaks. We can plant between 2 different fields in a section, but we need a variable break or a discernible break between those two because they're not pivot corners. But it allows us to look at the planning patterns that we have when we put the information into our mapping to create an acreage report. This is an example of the break between irrigated and non-irrigated by seed population, the green being irrigated, of course, running from 18,000 to 36,000 seeds per acre, down to 18,000 or less for the non-irrigated. And so we see we have our acreage and our fields determined from the planter population that was in the prescription. There is some visiting about soybean populations that don't change between the irrigated and non-irrigated, which is an approved practice. And if that's the fact, then we need a indication in our prescriptions of how their seed is determined to be separated on both irrigated and non-irrigated corners. The last entry on a prescription is the seed varieties or seed types, and if we put in two different seed varieties, one for the irrigated center pivot and one for the non-irrigated corners, that allows us to have two different sets of data set, much like the seed population change, so that we know our irrigated corners versus our non-irrigated corners, and we can set up our unit structure based off that information. If we determine for whatever reason that the planter information is not acceptable, we can still use the production records from the automated yield systems that the insured is going to use during harvest. When we first started with precision farming, it had to be planted with precision farming, and it still does. But at that time, if we couldn't use precision farming planning, we couldn't use precision farming harvesting records. But now RMA allows us to use the harvest records even though we didn't utilize the precision farming planted acres as they were turned into us. So we're going to take a look at harvest and going into our mapping program and then into reports so that we have that information available. It's actually 3 easy steps to set up a precision report. They harvest the field, and then once they're done with harvesting the field, they can upload the information wirelessly, as I said, from either their home, send the information to the agency that forwards it on to us, or makes connection between his wireless system and ours so that we can bring information from Climate, Field View, or My John Deere whenever he says it's ready for us to import. And then we can review the production reports once we put them in our mapping system and create an electronic production report for the insured to look at and sign with him and the agency. We always want to make sure that when we visit with our insureds that we need to keep alternate records in case we have some problems with our productions records from the combine. Every once in a while we have a problem that we can't overcome, and that information would not be determined acceptable. Then we'd have to go back and look at load records, bin measurements, settlement sheets, or whatever other source of entry that the insured would have kept without the precision farming in place. Our records are determined from the following: the planter monitors, combine yield monitors, the yield mapping software, and the calibration report. And again, we'll talk about the calibration report in a bit. What we need to get from the reports when they get done is a colored map depicting yield variations or planting differences, and we do that for the insured when they give us the data. Our maps will indicate the plant populations, it indicates the yields that we have, the moistures during the field operation or harvest, and so all those are depicted from our system once we get the information from the insured. And then of course we need to keep track of the ranges and yield variations or portions of the field that didn't get harvested for whatever reason. We have to account for the entire unit. So we look at the combines for what we want from the field information. We get the location of the field, the name of the crop, date, and number of pounds or bushels of crop for that field when we get our report from the combine. And it says that the insured must also identify unit number that correlates with the field identification on records. Once we put the information into our map system, the unit structure is already indicated from the acreage report, and so we supply this information for the insured in the event RMA wants to take a look at it. The insured report must include their name, unit number, FSA, farm track, or ID number, which is indicated, legal descriptions of the field, and the crop that was harvested. And of course, when we put it into our mapping system, we pick all that information up off the acreage report, and so we're ready to go on that side of it. What we don't have until we get the report is the harvest date, total weight, total yield, any moisture contents during the harvest of the crop, and we always apply the loss standard moisture factors to the production in the event of a claim. And so we may have less bushels in our harvested bushels due to moisture change than we do before we put it through the system. Our total dry yields is what we're looking for claim settlements. And again, that comes from the raw data from the monitor. If for some reason we question the accuracy of the yield monitor, we have the ability to ask for the monitor raw data source. And of course, we already have that in our system from the uploads from whatever source they're utilizing to us, that we have that information available. And we'll keep that information in place for the entire length of the policy. Again, if we find some reason that the information from the precision technology is not acceptable or doesn't follow the procedures, we can utilize bin loads perhaps as some type of form of measurement, simply like truckloads or some other type of measurements that goes in bins. But we cannot use the technology or the precision farming information if it's not acceptable. So we always inquire or always assign the abilities of keeping alternate records, load records, combine monitor records, or bin markings for the insured. This is an example farm that I have set up for us to view this morning. This is the planting records of a field. It shows us the difference in plant populations, the red being the non-irrigated corners, the center being a different colors of greens, giving us a irrigated population. And so with that information, if the insured wants optional units, we can set them up for him based off of seed count. Our non-irrigated corners result into the acres of 23.5 acres. And so we have that availability from the planter monitor records itself. The center pivot is put in there at 134.96 acres. And so we have optional units for this center pivot if the insured wants to do that, and it will match RMA's procedures for that pivot situation. At grain harvest, we take a look at the total harvest of the field and see if we can determine any differences. As you can see, the red areas are the pivot corners. They're different colors in the center pivot, that we can lay that on top of our corners that we got from planting and separate that into optional units so we can take a look at that. Our irrigated corners, our irrigated system is 133.2 acres, 18% moisture. We have the bushel volume of 235 bushels an acre, or 31,000, almost 31,500 bushels of grain coming from the center of the pivot. When we take a look at the balance of the report, we see that the non-irrigated corners were split out for us. We have 16.77% moisture there, a lower moisture per acre than the center pivot, which is sensible. The yields are less, but are documented in our bushels per acre, and our total bushel volume is there for us to take a look at it. And the dry bushels are the bushels that we applied the moisture factors to. So I've mentioned throughout the presentation so far that we need a calibration report of the monitor system within the machines that are doing the harvest. There are no calibration reports for planting or for planters, and so when we visit about calibration reports, it's strictly to the combine monitor to ensure that it's recording bushels in the proper fashion. The calibration report is one that we have available for all insureds to look at and fill out. They can fill it out on their own paperwork if they want to, as long as they have the crop year and each sensor calibration adjustment that was performed and the percentage of change from the previous settings. And they can document that in whichever fashion they care to, but we do have those reports available for you to send to your insured for this calibration report. The calibration report must be, as I said, by crop, by field, by whatever the sensor calibrations were. And that calibration report at the end of the calculations needs to be less than 3%. And so when we have readings greater than 3% in our calibration report, then we need to go back and recalculate until we have samples that are less than 3% on our total end of the documentation. And so I have an example here of what I'm talking about in a little bit, but if we're over 3% in calibrations on our calculations, we need to recalculate until we are less than 1 or 3% when we take a look at the information. This is an example of a combine monitor, 33,779 bushels. The scale from the picture of the scales on the grain cart, 32,780 bushels. So we are very close, and that's the accuracy that we're looking for between the total weight in the grain cart versus the weight in the combine. That gives us the information that we need to set up a calibration report based off that information, and we will take a look at the pictures if they want to provide those to us. So my calibration report is as such. Top line is the one we were looking at, the weight in the monitor versus the weight in the scales that were weighed. 1 bushel difference, 0% in calibration, and so we enjoy that part of the calibration report. As you can see, my second calibration, we exceeded the 3% tolerance. And so the thing to remedy that is to keep calibrating until we are less than 3% on our calculations, and then we're good to go. And so when we end up with the final reading on our calibration report less than 3%, we can use the bushels that came from that field through the combine monitor. Again, acceptable harvested production records. We're looking at the planter monitors again to set up our unit structures for us, our combine monitors to provide us with the yields from those units, and then the mapping software. And the mapping software is what we do for the insureds. Once we get the information, we put it into our mapping system and create a mapped schedule of insurance or a mapped production report for them to rely on for whatever needs they want it to be. And again, the calibration report from the performed by manufacturer's requirements. And the manufacturing requirements are each monitor for each machine has a requirement from the manufacturer of the monitor on how they calibrate the machine. And so as long as it's performed by their calibration reports, then we're good to go. Again, we need to ensure the farmer each year that we are a precision farming company. And so we send them a postcard each spring reminding them that we can utilize both their harvest information, their planting information, so that we can use that for their crop insurance records. Again, we need to make sure that we advise them that the alternate records need to be kept by unit in case our combine fails us on our monitor side. So what we provide to the insured when we're done is their planting and their replanting information. If they replant and run it through the monitors, which they do, then we have our planted acres, our replanted acres. They have their inputs from their systems that they utilize at My John Deere or FieldView. We are not interested in any source of information stored in those sites other than the planting records or the harvesting records so that we can complete our crop insurance reports for the insured. And we will keep all this information in store for them for the length of the policy. In the event of a review, we have that information in place. We shouldn't have to bother anybody for extra information if that information is accurate. When do we need to measure any fields out there? It's only when part of the field or the unit has not been harvested, when the other portion has. If we can't provide the proper documentation on units harvested versus unharvested acres, the adjusters may have to go out there and use a different source of measurements to determine the unharvested acres, and also why was the acres not harvested when once they were planted. Again, some of the advantages that we always visit about is the crop insurance reports that we get from FSA or from the insured. They have reports they can take to FSA and show them the acres that they planted. We're going to store the data for up to 3 years and longer if the policy is still in effect. We can use that information for our $200,000 or $500,000 reviews, farm records that they can keep on their systems. Of course, there's a seed distribution and the other things that they need to look at if they're interested in the reports from either source that they use. We again are not interested in fertilizer rates, soil usage, or planting cost, or profit or loss information that could be obtained from their sites. We only want the planting information and the harvest information. And all the information is protected under the non-disclosure statement so that it can't not be disclosed to anybody other than what the insured wants us to do. So how do I begin with precision farming if I'm an agent or if I'm an insured? And when I talk about the insured, simply to get started, they have to tell the agent that they are going to do precision farming, and you can talk to them about what the requirements are, or they can set up their insured portal that we have on our website and run through part of the system themselves and tell you that they are in that activity. And anytime we receive a report from an insured on planting or harvesting, we automatically notify the agency that we have the information in place and that it is there for us to use. And so they can take a look at that information on our dashboard. On our dashboard, we have several different farming practices or precision farming files with detailed statuses on how we do each portion of our precision farming. We have the help window that will provide information outside of the dashboard or how to do things differently than some of the other things that they may look at, but the help file gives us a chance to look at all the aspects of precision farming, from the setting of the plant populations to create optional units and to harvest production that's associated with those units. So all that information's in our website if they want to take a look at it. They get the information in those websites on how to upload the files to us. The files that come to us have to be in zipped format. So if I'm getting a flash drive from an insured, I have to zip the information up before I can upload it to Portal. But that's easily done with either WinZip or some other type of zipping information that you have on your computers. But all our files that we receive have to be in a zipped format. And then we tell you how to follow the status of the reports whenever you want to look at the file status in the system. And so all that information's out on our website, and I'll show you where most of it's located here at the end of the presentation, but we make it all available for both you and the insured if they want to view what's required for precision farming. And then we also show them how to request an acreage report or a production report once the information is into our portal system and says it's ready to be utilized. And once we have the processing in place and the data is complete, a preliminary acreage report or production report will be available for you to review. We'll forward that on to you to review once it's done with the insured, and it can take a signature from both you and the insured to finish both the acreage report and the production reports. One of our disclaimers is we like to have the information in 15 days prior to reporting dates for both the planting and the harvesting if available. However, we'll take precision farming data at any time throughout the year for claims purposes. We worked on the precision farming claim from last year just the other day. I didn't have precision information when we started, but we do now, and so we were able to assist the insured with his loss settlements off of the information. So we're going to upload some data to take a look at it from both the agency or the farmer, and I'll show you the difference between the two, which is very little. We go into either the agent's portal up here or the farmer's portal, whichever one we are, and we sign into the program. Once we're in the program, we see the message center down below that has several different announcements you could read if you wanted to, but we're basically interested in the precision farming tab here for us right here. When I do that, it's going to open it up to our precision farming portal, and your agency is listed there. And notice your 2020, when we're doing production, it goes into the upcoming year, so that that production goes into next year's, goes into the APH for next year in 2022. It is the same as when we get done with production. Normally we put it in 2022 policy, and so when we upload the portal, we also want it in 2022. Now, if we happen to get some in 2021, we're notified that there's information in 21. We can bring it from 21 to 22 and run with it from there. But we ask that you please put it in 2022 when you upload production. When I'm looking at what insured I want to work with on the policy, I can put in their last business name or whatever information I have available for the insured. I click on search, and when I do search, it pulls up the policy that I wanted to look for, best farmer. And so when have that information in place, I click on continue, and now I have the ability to upload information either from the cloud import or from the flash drive or from my computer as designated here. And so we're going to take a look at doing it from a flash drive first or from my computer first, whichever you want to look at. When I click on that file, it opens me up to my computer I'm working with at home, and it gives me a chance to pick up my document that I want to export to NAU country. It's in zip format based off the information we asked for. It takes a while for it to upload, but it gives you a graph to follow while it's uploading and whatever the sequences are. And once it's done, you'll see the file that we exported in the system and set and ready to go. We like to have you put in the comment section harvest data for corn and soybeans for 2021, or any type of information you want us to look at for during the import of the records that gives us some idea of what we're going to look for in the data once we get it. Cloud import is somewhat similar, but it has a few extra steps. We're going to click on the cloud import. We're going to bring up where do we want to go for connection. I filtered it to 2021, which is the year that we want to look at for the policy. I look at where do we get the information. It says add connection, step 1. I click on the drop down box. I can choose these three here on which one I want to utilize. I'm going to take climate as my source of information. Click on next. When I do that, it automatically takes me to field view login. And the field view login has to be allowed by the insured because it's their account. They give you either their username, password to get logged into field view, or they can set up a partnership with your agency and give you a username and password to utilize to get into the system. Once I'm into the system, it's telling us what we want to do with the information. We'd like to be able to get the activities from field view for planting, for harvesting, so we can look at the field information in our system and allow us to utilize that information for their crop insurance reports is what we're looking for. And so they click on allow, or you click on allow, which creates the link between us so that we have a connection. Our connection now is with field view, as we see here. I have 2021 or 2022 information was out there also, and so it brought in the years that we want to look at. And so we'd look at the 2021 harvest information. That's a mistake because we haven't harvested in 21, and take a look at what's there. Once I did that, it says that the information we have is ready for us to utilize when we want to look at the information. So since the file is ready, I'll go up and click on production report at the top. It's going to ask me who do we want to use it on. I'm going to plus sign on best farmer, continue. And once I do that, the agency contact information pops up automatically so that the agent gets an email saying we have the information in place and ready to create an acreage report or a production report off the information. We notify the agency anytime we use the information for reviews or for whatever practices we want to utilize. You are on our list of notifications so that you know we're utilizing the information. And the request was submitted, so we're ready to go. Once the request is submitted, we need one more step, and that step says we want to put it in process. And when we do that, we say okay, and now it says it's ready to go to process. And when we do that, then the next step is to go into the mapping program and see what we bring in. If I'm interested in what we're going to import, I can take a look over here on this little icon, and it'll give me the mapping information for whatever we're doing with the information. This map, of course, is for some fields that they utilized. We have the total yield weights wet and the total average yields wet. We have the average moistures from the machine. We have the average bushels dry, and we have both the wet and dry masses there, so we're set to go with this report. An insured can pull this report down and look at it anytime they want to. You can look at the mapping system anytime you want to verify or look at the information that was in what we uploaded to NAU country. Once it's there, I go to 2022 program, commit or endorse the policy, and then click on the mapping tab. The mapping tab, we have fields for the insured that we're using for our demonstration this morning. And so once I have my fields available in 2022, I'm going to click on the production tab up at the top. That takes me to my production report for 2021. Here are my fields of interest. Down below I have the number of acres in each field. And so we have that information in our system based off the acreage reports from the crop year. Go down here and click on import at the bottom. Tell it that we want it to bring it from precision farming, which is our precision tab that we want to utilize. We have other sources they can bring it in if they want to. They can do it from an SMS program, which is Ag Leaders program. Each individual person can utilize if they want. But our information of record today come from the Precision Farming tab. I click on that, and once I do that, I have the acres in place, or the bushels in place, and I have where did they come from, Precision Farming. I don't have any average yields here until we get to the endorsement part of the policy and we have a signed production report in place. Once we do that, we can create a production report based off the information. This is just an example. We have the acres, the yields per acre, and the total bushels at the end of the information, and D is for the harvested production coming from precision farming. And so we did our steps. 1, we harvested. 2, we uploaded it to NAU country. And 3, now we have a production report ready to review with the insured for signatures or for corrections if there needs to be any. So we've talked about the calibration report several different times, and I won't cover up any more of your time with that, but it's important that we do a calibration report. The reason I'm talking about grain carts here is because they're becoming more popular and more uses in play. And so what I was trying to explain is that we have a weight source next to our combine that we can utilize for calibration. So the grain carts have to have a grain weight integrated panel on it so we can see the weights. It has to be able to print all individual load tickets if we want it to, or a detailed summary by unit at the end of harvest so we can see all the weighed bushels from each unit from the grain carts that they utilized in those fields. If we have multiple grain carts out there and they're not all equipped with scales, of course, then we are limited to going back to our normal types of records, bin measurements, scale records, or other sources of measurements to verify the production from the field rather than the grain carts, because there's one in the field that didn't register the weights. So acceptable grain scales that we could utilize other than the grain carts. The grain cart is the one that we are looking at here. But if I have a elevator ticket from the load going to town, or I have scale tickets from the farm scales to verify the weights in the monitor on the combine, then we're set to go. So we're looking at harvested production and producing reports that reflected the acres, the harvested acres, the harvested production, and then we look at the calibration report itself. The precision farming technology systems that we're looking at, from flash drive to our system, or from iCloud, or from map data, so that we can take a look at in our system when we put it there. I said that we had several different places where you look at the information within our system, and I can do that by clicking on Farmers Portal or on the Agents Portal. Go in there, go under Training, and look at the different factions that we want to look at. The IT training and resources are where we put our precision farming information, and we can take a look at many different things in our training resources, from continuing ed, IT production training, different things there. We're looking for precision farming, so I do a search at the top. I put in precision, and I have a precision farming self-help I can look at. A precision self-help, get the information correct is what it's supposed to say. Precision farming self-help tab for the farmer, for the agent, and that information is available when we take a look at it. The OEM and FMIS information is a information site that we have that has the rules and regulations from manufacturers to calculate monitors with. And it's there if you want to take a look at it or you want to prescribe to look at it. That's a good place to go to look for it. But basically what we're doing is we're getting started with precision farming for you or the insured, the self-help that we talked about before, or we're going to look at farmers focused on Farmer Portal and Any Country Mobile. The one thing that I wanted to mention there is once we put the information into our mapping system from the planter or from the combine, it's available to the insureds on their iPhone through our Farmer Portal or Any Country Mobile. Or the production reports are available for them on mobile too, so that they can look at that information on their iPhone, iPad, if they so choose to do so. So I took a look at the Precision Farming Self-Help tab, and I'm going to take a look at getting started. And when I look at that, it gives me what is necessary to do the precision farming by the insured, uploading or importing the data into our system. All the information is available here for that to happen. If I go up a little further, I look at the step-by-step descriptions on what we need to do with the data to get it imported into our system. And we can take a look at the cloud import information also. How do we import from cloud information if we want to do so? Over here is I requested a report. So we set up a request for either an acreage report or production report so that we can get that completed within the system. And then the completion tells us how to look at the information once we're done. So all that information is available, and we like it in that fashion. I took a look at tips and tricks because we have all sources of tips and tricks out there for the entire policy information. But I took a look at tips and tricks, then looked at the upload precision farming, very similar to what we had on self-help. We take a look at the cloud imports, the request, a report, and completion. Then down here we have different things that we can look at when we look at automated acres and easy mapping or the other information that's available out there. Down at the bottom we have resources that's available within our website. I click on the calibration report. This is a place for me to get a calibration report, provide it to the insured if they want to utilize it. It can be sent to them in email. They can put it in their iPad, or if they can work it on the iPhone, get it there. And so they can do that calibration report for us. So we have that information available. And all that information is good for us to have in place. If I go down here and it says assist your farmer in walkthrough process using the Farmer Edition user guide, we can click on that. We can see our user guide additions in our system. We can look at it from all the steps that are available for farming. We take a look at the purpose of precision farming, accessibilities, all that information's in this report if you want to. I looked at the exporting files and it takes me right back to the farmer portal. I can do it through Field View, My John Deere, Agfinity, Ag Leader, which is ever there. And it gives the information to you or the insured on how they can upload the information to us from their systems that they want us to get the information from. Again, it's for both the insured or the agent to get the information to us if they want to look at it. Takes us through step by step of the whole entire process of uploading the data to us. And so works really well. Again, it just explains to us the total process of the cloud imports. And so that's a good place for it. So our website contains many different productions or reports on how to get things done. And so it's there for you to look at anytime you want to, or the insured can look at it through Farmers Portal that we allow them to look at. So we went from planning in some detail to harvesting the crop into the system. We're calibrating our scales and our monitor so we can get that information in place and then go from there. One thing I do want to mention, as I said about the grain carts, always remind the insureds that if they have more than one combine in the field, we need to be able to get a report from both combines. One may be running with a link to My John Deere. The other one may be going to Climate, and that's fine. We can combine the two together once we get the information from them, but we need both sets of records from both combines in the field in order to have a production report for the insured. I want to thank you for your time and your attendance today. Any questions that you have can be sent to precisionfarming@naucountry.com. That's our NAU Precision Farming team. And be sure to visit with us anytime about any concerns you may have on precision farming. With that, please have a remainder good week.